Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Schneider, the executive editor of IndieWire and editor-at-large at Variety. Woo, yeah! I think we can agree that Josh is a bit of a mess, so that's why it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce one of the stars of Transparent, Mr. Jay Duplass.
Hi, guys.
So you're just saying this was kind of a dark episode, but kind of a dark season.
That was a hoot, huh? It's a comedy.
Well, we got to see quite a range of you in that episode, though. A little singing, a little guitar playing, some drama, a little bit of comedy, the wide range of Jay Duplass. So you're
Some Pfefferman crushing, some spirit crushing by a Pfefferman. The roving male id, as Jill refers to him.
a little bit of all the above. So
Yep.
so a pretty representative, good episode for all. But of course, also a little bit of a road trip. It took you outside of the usual production. So you actually shot that, you were telling me beforehand, up in Palmdale.
Yeah, we shot in Palmdale, California, which we were discussing is very close to LA and very, very far from LA spiritually.
Yeah.
It was we kind of just went away for 2.5 days and sat with this episode, which I think for Jill was like a marquee moment of this season.
What was that like, sort of being away from sort of the, doing something a little different away from the usual production?
Yeah, it was nice. It was, we shoot at Paramount really close to here, and we shoot mostly in Silver Lake, and it's very, homesteady the way that we make the show. So going away on a road trip and really doing it, and Jill's big about making it happen for real. So we just kind of had some time where, and really, Trace and I were the only actors out there, so we kind of just spent tons of time together figuring this thing out.
And these were some intense scenes at the end too, and talk a little bit about that and sort of preparing for that, but also sort of being in that environment in Palmdale, sort of away from it all, and sort of preparing for that.
Yeah, it was one of those weirdly tough shoots where it was 40 degrees, but we had been wardrobed for kind of a summery vibe.
Yeah.
But it was 40 degrees and just gale force winds and if you know Palmdale is just weird dust laced with meth hitting you over the head at all times, and that water park looks so cool, but the reality when we got there was it was just all white surfaces reflecting into your face, and Trace and I would literally hover together in between takes and hold on to each other, shivering, and close our eyes so that when we could roll, our eyes would open. And people were like, what was the chemistry like? And I was like, survival? But I think it really, I was telling Michael back there that in a weird way, we were hyper focused on each other the whole time because the elements were so in our face. I think in a weird way, Jill has this, I don't know, she has some magical way of getting her actors in these strange places where we needed each other, and the only thing that I had was to focus on her because everything else was hitting me, and I think that's where both of the characters actually were metaphorically somehow.
Yeah, and I think it also helps just even physically how you look at the end of that episode, sort of just drained, and also, I don't know what I'm doing here, sort of the theme of Josh throughout the series, but
Yes.
especially this season. So season 3, Josh is sort of in a confused place to begin with, and then of course the big issue of Rita dying sort of throws him for a complete separate loop. Talk about your character this season and how the death of this woman who sort of meant so much to him in his youth and sort of came back into his life with this surprise of a child, etc. How this sort of impacted him and where his journey throughout season 3.
So thoughtful. So nice. I guess, the way that we talk about Josh from the core is essentially a boy who has been surrounded by incredibly strong women his whole life, and even his dad, who was he thought was the only man in his life, is actually a woman. So he, is very confused as to how to be a man. I think that's Josh's primary arc. I think that's a big arc for men in America in general. I think a lot of guys in my generation, we don't know how to be because we don't necessarily admire the men who came before us, but we haven't figured out how to do it. So that's a big part of that culture. And I think, Rita is another woman who is in Josh's life who's probably way too strong for him. And, we've been flirting with this idea of like, can a 15, 16-year-old boy be molested by a 20-year-old woman? What does it really mean? And the idea of what is a relationship with equanimity, which I think the Pfeffermans all have trouble with. They're all involved in like weird power dynamics. So I think Rita's death unhinges Josh in a massive way, and drives him towards his son, which is, I think a lot of people were feeling. I mean, we got a lot of blowback in season 2 in a good way, where people were just could not deal with Josh's separation from his son.
What did you make of that storyline? First off, of the decision for Rita to take her own life, and how that would impact Josh, and when you learned that was the trajectory for especially the second half of the season for your character, what'd you think of that? What'd you make of that?
Being in Transparent is an exercise in total release. Is very challenging emotionally. I love the show so much, and I love my sisters. I text with them every day. I just emailed my whole family. We were talking about some family. We're a whole family now. We make decisions as a family. It's really crazy. So when Jill drops something big like that, it's just something that I think starts with her, where she knows this thing needs to happen. And I think my job and all of our jobs is to figure out why and what it means. And I think I had something super smart to say, but I totally forgot what it was. Guys, it was gonna blow you away. Wait, what was the question you asked me about Rita? What did I think?
That storyline, and then also sort of adding on to it, the fact that he's driving across country, he goes to Kansas, and he has this moment where this is going to be my new life now. I'm going to spend time with Colton, and I'm going to live here. I'm going to move here.
I'm going to move in the Midwest. Josh Pfefferman. Living in Kansas is just awesome.
Well, he doesn't know what he wants to do, and for a second he thinks he's found the solution. Clearly it's not, and it takes his son basically denying him for him to wake up again. But it was an interesting arc for your character.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so grateful that I get to play all this devastating full stuff. I'm the luckiest person in the world, you guys. I mean, I'm still fairly new to acting and figuring all this out. But yeah, I just get excited. I don't know. I also get nervous too, but there's something interesting that happens every year when we prepare for a new season. We all get really tense because we know we're going to have to go through horrible stuff, and worse, we're going to have to put other people through horrible stuff. As you saw here, it's tough to do, but for some reason I don't know, we all feel like we're learning so much about how to live our own lives better.
Well, and this has been kind of like acting school for you in some ways, right? I mean, you came into this job and you'd obviously done some acting before, but this really was your first major role, and Jill immediately put you to work. I mean, she immediately said, you know what, you can do this, and you just kind of, wound you up and sent you out there.
Yeah. I was in a Meisner cult as a director. You guys, some of you know, somebody was in one. I was in a Meisner cult for a while because I was a director who wanted to not be afraid of actors. I think, a lot of actors and directors are terrified of each other. They just don't say it. And so I wanted to bridge that gap. And so I did that class a long, long time ago, but it's something I've slipped into it so easily. And when Jill put me in this show, I really resisted. But then I'm that guy in my family where everybody's like, can you stop having so many feelings because you're making us fucking uncomfortable? And now I'm getting paid for that shit. And it feels great.
Yeah.
So I don't know, in a weird way, I am enjoying acting more than I've ever enjoyed writing and directing. And I think it's just more of who I am. I don't have many emotional blocks, I don't think. That I think my wife would be annoyed about that. She's like, stop emoting all the time. And I'm like, okay, I'll just go to set and get it out there.
I remember running into a couple months ago at another event, and you mentioned this is kind of the full-time passion. You really have sort of adjusted your career a little bit in that it's now acting first. So talk about that evolution, and when did you decide and realize, what, this is now my focus and sort of job one?
I think that, I have to just talk about the immense gratitude that I have for being a part of this show. I think that's the opening of everything. Is I'm on an incredible show with amazing human beings that's at the forefront of the civil rights movement, and I get to help. That really opened everything in my mind, but I think the process of acting and the sort of, I guess, validation of my emotion, I'm gonna cry, but my emotionality is not a liability. It's actually what they need. And so that has been life-changing for me. And as much as I guess, and honestly, but even still when that happened, the first couple of years, I was still a writer-director who was in my friend Jill Soloway's show that was this fluke, and I almost, because, I grew up in suburbs of New Orleans and never thought I would even make it in this industry. I didn't know how to turn off that compulsive, I must write, I must direct, I must produce, I must write, I must direct, I must produce.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to turn it off. And then people just started offering me roles. And that's when I just thought, oh, I can just let go. Can I let go? And that's what acting feels like to me, is like letting go.
I mean, it's such a jump from, I still remember those early Mindy Project episodes where you were mute. You basically...
I was a Muppet on that show. I don't know if that counts. Yeah, I was just like Beaker, essentially.
It was kind of hysterical. Like your brother would have all the lines and you'd just be kind of standing there smiling. You'd have a big grin on your face, and that was pretty much it.
They'd give me 2 jokes an episode.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Well, it's kind of become almost lore now how Jill recruited you at a party, at an event that you were thrown, and convinced you to do this. She saw something in you, and when you look back now at that moment, and you resisted at first, and finally said yes. Take me back to what you were thinking, what you were feeling when Jill was trying to convince you, hey, you can do this, you got this.
I just thought she was insane. I almost didn't go to this party. It's terrifying to me now. I literally think about it and shudder in the shower, oh God.
It's like the sliding doors where it's
the sliding
2 lives.
Doors thing.
Yeah.
I was just helping her cast the role, and the way that we just talked for a while, and she couldn't figure out who this person needed to be, and then she stopped. She said, "It's you. It's you." And I said, no.
Yeah.
I said, what are you talking about? I'm a director. I was just making Togetherness. I was scared to death of like, moving into TV and doing all this stuff. And she has this way about her, like when she knows something, it's hard to deny her. And she said, well, why don't you just come in and read with the family? We'll come in and we'll read and we'll see. We'll just see. And I was like, okay, well, this will be an interesting thing. This is a good experience for me to have as a director. I should at least do this. And I went in and I read the barbecue scene that was in the pilot. And, Gabby and Amy were there and we were like treating each other like brothers and sisters. And we were making each other laugh and almost making each other cry. And the scene ended and it was totally improvised. And I looked over at Jill and she was like, and she really had this look of like, who are you to deny this lightning that is striking here?
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I'll do your web show on that channel where I buy my toilet paper.
Right.
Like Amazon was a place to buy toilet paper. That's it.
Right. Free shipping.
Free shipping. That's all it was. I was like, we'll make a web show. And then 6 months later, we win a Golden Globe.
Boom. Obviously, as a director, and I know I've read interviews that you've said before where you learned a lot about acting as a director, and so do you think that transition was, they always say a lot of actors ultimately want to direct, and you don't see as many directors ultimately want to act.
Most people don't want to abdicate control. I'm weirdly going the opposite way.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. Do you think was it an easier transition than actors wanting to become directors, or just different?
I think it's totally different because I think actors wanting to be directors is a totally different impulse. Also, I was just trying this thing out. I wasn't even, doing anything. But all I kept in mind is like what I know I'm looking for when an actor is in front of me, whether it's in an audition or whether it's on set. Like I just want an actor to own it 100% and do what inspires them that comes from a place from which I don't understand. Unseen forces. And I was scared. It's Jeffrey Tambor. I mean, the guy is a titan. Judith Light is a titan. Gabby Hoffman's a titan. Amy Landecker is the best actor I know.
Catherine Hahn.
What the hell am I doing here?
What the hell are you doing there?
That's what I was saying, but I was like, no, I just promise I'm just going to come out blasting and just do what I want to do. And maybe they'll have to replace me. And I think that, Jill was just like, that's everything more than I expected. And I think most of you guys, I don't know if you guys are actors? Yeah. Yes. The one piece of advice I can just say is like, don't do what you think they want you to do. Do your thing. Because I will tell you, when the actors come in and they let it rip and the lightning strikes and it comes through their body, you've all had it. Even if we don't cast them, if they're not right for this particular thing, there is a list. And there are unfamous people on this list. Remember that guy that came in and he did that weird baseball thing? He's talking about baseball in this scene. And I can't stop thinking about it. That guy, let's write something for him, or let's pull him into this, or whatever it may be. So that was all I was going with.
That's interesting. And you mentioned, it sounds like this cast gelled immediately, and you're now such a family, which I assume means but you love each other, but you also fight like family. Is it kind of like that, or is it?
We don't fight that much. I think what the reality is that to be on Transparent is the greatest blessing in the world, but it is hard. It is very, very hard to get out there. We're naked a lot. We're doing crazy hard things to
You guys say,
other
by the way,
people.
literally and
metaphorically. Yeah. So we really rely on each other to support each other through it, you know.
What have you learned from them? What would you say has been sort of the big takeaway in getting to work with these titans?
The exact same thing I just taught you guys.
Yeah.
They all do their preparations and they have their ideas, but when they get on set, they let it rip and they don't come from a place of control. They come from a place of instinct and immediacy.
Was it hard, having been a director, coming into someone else's project and ceding that control? Was the initial instinct was to, oh, why don't you do it this way? Or, hey, wouldn't that be cool if we did another take and did it this way? Or is that accepted? Is that cool on set?
Jill is such a genius that I just didn't ever have to. I mean, she's the type of person that if I have something that's going on and there's tension because I want to do something else, she'll be like, do the thing that you want to do. Or she'll say, something is happening. What is happening? There are times now, just to speak frankly, where we have guest directors and it's hard. It's hard. These people are insane. I mean, these people are, we know what we're doing and we have such intimate relationships with it. It's very hard for anyone to come in and tell us what to do. And that's challenging sometimes, and not just what to do, but how to do it. So in the first season, I didn't do a thing. I was just being absorbed by the show. But now, and it's not just me. It's not me as a director. It's just me as a person who has very strong opinions and instincts, and everyone here does too. And we all will, if we get in a scene and something is just not unfolding in the right way, we will re-rig the scene and just in the friendliest way possible. But, Jill has also empowered us to do that, to like say to the director, like, look, we love you, but like all these ideas need to go away. You need to turn the camera on and somebody needs to come in this door and do something that nobody really expected. And we do that a lot. We, try to keep that environment where anything is possible.
I know I've seen interviews where you've joked that Mark was keeping something from you, like he was having all the fun as the actor in the family. And what's your dynamic with your brother now that you're both sort of in this business? Any sibling rivalry going on, or you guys sort of sharing this new world together?
That motherfucker. Acting up a storm all that time while I was carrying around those goddamn 50-pound cameras.
Right.
My arches fell. My shoulders fell. My belly popped out. Yeah, it is a wonderful secret. I don't know, Mark. It's very interesting because we both started primarily. I mean, Mark was showing up as an actor in our stuff, but we were primarily writer-directors together. And it's strange that now I am migrating more towards acting, and he's actually migrating more towards producing. I mean, he's really a genius in terms of, he's really the leader in terms of how he's built out our company as almost like a mini independent film studio, like a tiny Annapurna, you know what I mean? We have our movie deal with Netflix and we have our TV deal with HBO, and I mean, he's got an incredible mind for that and an appetite for it. So it's been really interesting. I don't know. Never would have expected it.
I was going to say, both of you guys probably 5 years ago would be surprised at the direction.
Totally, yeah. I mean, we just wanted to be the Coen brothers our whole life and failed for so long. I mean,
now they're young kids who want to be you guys. So
that's your heart out, Joel and Ethan.
You're having a big year. which means you were busy last year as well, because a lot of these films that you worked on last year are now starting to come out. Let's talk a little bit about that and some of the things you got coming up. Beatrice at Dinner, actually next weekend. You're in the Jenny Slate film Landlined, which is coming out later this summer. Philosophy of Phil, you've already shot. Among other things, talk about sort of, how busy you've been as an actor over this past year.
I'm famous, guys. I don't know if you know it yet. I'm a famous actor.
Who can resist this mug, right? That beard that you just want to...
There's so much hair going on here. The main thing about being a regular working actor is I am not in charge of my face and head. I finish a project and then I call people and I'm like, can I change my face and head? And they go, no! Leave your face and head alone.
Yeah.
I haven't had a, intentional haircut in forever. That's it, basically. It's no face and hair control. No, I feel incredibly lucky to be working with these level of, Miguel Arteta, Gillian Robespierre. I've been able to be in some incredible works so far. None of them have gotten out yet, but Beatrice is going to release, I think, next week.
Next weekend, yeah.
So, yeah, that's an incredible movie. I think it's really the first Trump-related movie of our times, and it's I think it will surprise a lot of people in terms of how smart, subtle, and thoughtful it is.
Yeah. What are you looking for in roles? What attracts you?
Just something that'll make me look more fit than I actually am.
Yeah.
I work incredibly hard for this mediocre body, you guys. It's a lot of work.
Something that requires a thick beard, some
thick
cool
beard,
hair,
fake chest hair just to cover thick, keep it going. I just want to play stuff that's interesting to me. I don't care how small or how big it is, and I want to be around good people making great art, and I would like to get paid if possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, really the good people making good art thing means the world to me. I don't buy things. I don't care about things at all. I do have kids in LA now, and that costs money, but I think that's what's really gotten Mark and me. Everybody's like, what's the secret? And we're like, don't buy anything ever. Just make stuff, And I don't know. It's just all I care about, and I don't need more money, and I just want to be around good people who are, making good stuff. And I've only recently realized it, actually articulated it, but we were talking about the movie I just shot, where I definitely need the movie to be socially conscious.
Yeah.
I need it. I need the overall theme. And not to make this a platform, but I really think all gestures in the world come down to separatism or I don't even know the words, Unitarianism. It's either unity or separation. And everything that I think I'm a part of is driving towards unity and inclusion.
Inclusiveness, I think that was the word you were looking for.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, you've been involved with Transparent for the past couple of years, a show that's all about inclusiveness, and it feels more important than ever given the political environment, given where we are right now. And as an artist, what's going on in the real world, I imagine that must affect you in some ways. Is that impacting, like you said, some of the decisions you're making, some of the roles you want to do, some of the art that you want to make in the coming years?
Yeah, I think when Trump got elected, I think almost all the ideas that Mark and I had dropped off the table immediately, because we were like, no, everything's changed.
Yeah.
Humor has changed. Impulse has changed. Everything has changed. So I think we're, as writer-directors, we're in a process of, rejiggering everything and figuring out how can we better the cause of inclusion on every level, whether that's hiring people and telling people stories, representing underrepresented voices, I mean, we kind of had started that with like Tangerine and a few of the films that we've made recently. But yeah, I mean, I think even with Transparent, the first year was about Jill was trying to make the world a safer place for her parent. And then we were evolving, and it was like, no, we want inclusiveness for all LGBTQ people, more of a platform for trans people, gender nonconforming people. And now the show has moved into a more intersectional role where it's like, no, every single marginalized voice. This is about all marginalized voices. Of course, we can't do them all in the show, but like that's where the consciousness is going.
Yeah. Well, the one thing you do need to do is find a new home for Togetherness. I haven't given up on that yet. Season 3, we gotta reboot that show somehow, somewhere.
Thanks, guys.
Gone too soon. We've got some questions from the audience, so I want to jump to these now real quick.
I can't believe you guys are still here. This is amazing.
Keely asks, what's the best advice you've ever been given as an actor?
Don't give a fuck.
Nice. And also, how did you land your first agent?
$3 movie at Sundance after 12 years of making loads and loads of derivative Coen Brothers stuff that was terrible.
Question from Tony. What kind of interaction do you have with Jill in terms of the direction of your character? Like, do you sit down with her before the season starts? Where's Josh going this season? What sort of input do you have?
It's like a constantly evolving thing where whenever I have impulses or she has impulses, we email each other and talk about them. But they're incredibly open, not just in the beginning of the season, but throughout the season, in terms of, hey, I was thinking because this happened, maybe Josh would do some of this type of stuff, and she'll come back to me. But even down to scenes where if there's a scene, and because writing this stuff is an immense job. If I see something and it doesn't feel right, I'll get ahead of it as fast as possible. And I mean, it's tricky, because it's like you don't want to stress out. I mean, I'm painfully aware of how hard a writer's room is, so I don't want to just like drop a bomb on them. But so what I try to do is like come from that writer's place a little bit and be like, hey, I think this is maybe old thoughts or whatever, and like here's a couple of things that I think are at the forefront of where Josh is going. Maybe something more like this. And so it's a very open dialogue with all the actors, and we all help each other with that as well.
You've already shot season 4, correct?
Yes.
That's already in the can.
Yes.
So I know you can't give away spoilers, but can you talk about the direction of Josh or maybe sort of the tone of the season?
Yeah. Well, the tone of the season, I think season 3 was really, really dark. And we all talked about that. And Jill really wanted the family to celebrate a little bit and have a little bit more lightheartedness. And because I think, there's definitely an all is lost type feeling about the end of season 3. But it ends a little bit on an uptick, and I think we pick up from there. There's a really big surprise in season 4 that I think is incredible, and it's very politically oriented. It's it's top notch Jill Soloway. I can't talk about that, but I will say that for me, the season starts with yet another Pfefferman cohabitation where I'm living with my mother, Shelley. She's living in my apartment with me, and I think the impetus for that is that I think Josh has a weird subconscious thing where if he can sort of help the most lost cause Pfefferman, then maybe there's hope for him as well too.
Yeah. All right. Emily has a question. Where do you see the trajectory of your career going? What's something you'd like to do that you haven't done yet? That's a good one. So where are we going with this career?
I'm writing something right now that is very new. I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like Togetherness. I may have I feel like I said what I came to say in terms of domestic relationship comedy, really like holding that space and getting my head around it. And I think I'm moving to, more of what we were talking about before, a place of more inclusion. But for me, I don't know. I think weirdly, all my ideas about what I thought I was gonna be the Coen Brothers. I still kind of want to be the Coen Brothers, but my art is like the polar opposite of them. I think the whole thing now is like I'm just open. I'm really, really open to whatever might happen. I could do anything. I don't know.
Would you ever do a big budget summer blockbuster kind of movie if they came to you and just some ridiculous large $200 million movie?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to get into my whole ethos about superhero movies and how it's our national mythology is bankrupt, but
I don't know. I kind of want to hear more about that.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit. Let me just say a little bit of something. Let me tell you something about superhero movies. Not all superhero movies, but I have a problem with superhero movies because most of the ethos of a superhero movie is there's some good people and there's some bad people, and the bad people are kicking ass. And what the good people need to do is get real strong and fucking kill those bad people. And once we do that, everything's going to be okay. And that is the ethos of this country, and that's what's wrong with our country right now. And this art is only fortifying and reinforcing that bullshit. And people are gobbling it up, and it's fucked up. And so Look, I have friends who grew up on comic books and love that stuff. It's not even about that. It's about it's like being a little girl or being a little boy and like those images and that stuff. But I also think that needs to be questioned and it needs to be looked at because I think there's a might is right mentality about it. I think there's a separatist mentality about it, and it bothers me. And I'm the dad of like 2 young kids, and I can't just watch those movies and have them like wash over me. Like I'm like painfully aware of like the core problem. And so I will never do a movie that would purport that. I'm not saying all superhero movies do. Most of them do. And I don't know. I can't ignore it.
Yeah. So it's sort of part of normalizing sort of this mentality.
It is
led to some of the changes that we've seen in government.
It is, and I think there's so many aspects of it, and I've just learned so much from Jill too. Is like, let's not mistake women behaving like shitty men for feminism, and there's so much misappropriation and so much stuff going on out there, and it's just. I don't know. I think we need great leadership in art as well as politics because I really do believe that, in a Joseph Campbell way, our national mythology is bankrupt. People don't know how to behave. They don't know how to act. And no one is telling them how to do it. And everyone is lost.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the applause. Come on.
My wife's going to be like, you said that? You held 100 people captive and told them that stuff? I'm like, yeah, I can't stop it anymore.
I like it. Well, let's wrap it up. I want to hear real quick, as an actor, what's been your favorite sort of either scene or moment, or you could talk about this last season, the upcoming seasons, one of your films, but kind of something that you've been really proud of so far. A moment, a scene, just maybe that moment that you were like, yeah, I'm an actor.
God,
putting you on the spot.
Really on the spot.
On
here.
the spot.
Well, we're making this HBO series now called Room 104, and I was able to bring So Young Kim in, who's this incredible director who just directed this movie called Love Song that just released on Netflix. It's a perfect movie. No one knows about it. Go watch Love Song on Netflix and it will blow your mind. You saw it? No? Okay, good. It's incredible. And I don't know. I mean, look, I'm proud of every single thing I do on Transparent. It's all equally mind-blowing, and I'm just a vessel. I'm just like trying to like channel shit. But on this particular show, it was really cool because So had just moved to Los Angeles with her young kids, and she was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I was able to bring in a shy female Asian director into Hollywood proper, get her paid on a TV show. I am the main actor in this one particular episode of Room 104. I got to let her have all the freedom that she wanted, and we got to make a beautiful thing together, and it like helped stabilize her move and her family, and we had a lot of fun together, and all I could think was like, this is a good way to live.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's, I believe, like the 4th episode of Room 104, which comes out this summer.
Yeah.
So keep your eyes out for that too. So there's a lot going on with you these days.
Thanks, man.
Congratulations, and thank you so much, Jay.
Thanks for doing this. Thanks, guys.